Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. For mind control based on lies and law. Uncle Sam, greatest evil I ever saw. We lead to hell, America for sale. Society spun like a dog chased tail. Tapping myself, tapping my landline. America free, must be out your mind. House is built on sand, fall, wind blow. House is built on paper, you already.
What's up, YouTube? I saw a couple things this week that caught my eye in the news. The first one, most of you probably have heard about it by now. The whole situation between Steven Crowder and Carlos Manza, or Vox. You know, Steven has made several jokes over the the years or whatever against Carlos Manza. You know, nothing too harsh or anything, just, but kind of like NSL does. And once the Pride March came around, Carlos decided to make a big stink about it, and he got support from Vox because he's a Vox reporter, and they tried to get Steven Crowder banned. But what happened was it backfired on him, and everybody came in to support Steven Crowder. He got way more subscribers out of the whole mess. YouTube didn't ban him. They at first they were kind of iffy about how to take care of the situation, but there were so many people, including far left people, that came in to support Crowder. But in doing so, the Vox and Manza pretty much shot themselves in the foot, and shot a lot of far left people in the foot as well. Other far left people being on YouTube and such. There was a big backlash and a lot of cracking down on most of the far left. So they shot themselves in the foot and made it worse for themselves, and now they're paying for it, which is what the far left does. Carlos Manza is a far left extremist who promotes violence, and he shot himself in the foot. And Vox was dumb enough to go down with him. So the far left tends to do this thing where they can't back themselves up or their claims with facts and stuff. And what Steven Crowder did was he basically did a rebuttal on something that a piece that Carlos Manza did. And came out with the facts and destroyed him with the truth. And Vox and Carlos Manza didn't like that because they couldn't fight the facts. And like I said, it made a big mess for them and a lot of far left people, and now they're the ones hurting for it. And that's what they do. The far left, they eat their own tail a lot of times. They just screw themselves over. So that's a win for the right. Good job, Steven. The other thing I saw that was pretty dumb political wise and was kind of big on the news was the old Keenu Reeves thing, where he's not touching women or whatever because of the whole Me Too movement or whatever. And I don't blame him for doing it. I mean, if I wouldn't put myself in that position either. So he's playing it smart, because anymore you just touch someone and they go off the wall, giving them just a hug or something, and these women are going off the wall claiming false claims and accusations, and it needs to stop. It's gotten a little bit ridiculous. So, more power to Keanu Reeves. I think he's a great actor, and keep doing what you're doing, bud, because the far left has nothing on you. They can't do nothing to you. It was stupid, but at the same time, I get it. I understand why he does it. Him showing that he's not touching, completely, putting his hands or arms around women or whatever when he takes photos with them. I completely understand why he's doing that. So moving on, I told you in previous videos I'm trying to play the whole Final Fantasy series, at least up to 9 probably. I tried a game called Wild Arms. I kind of took a break after playing Final Fantasy V, and I played this game called Wild Arms. Overall, the game was just, it's a big series now. There's several of them, kind of like Final Fantasy, but I don't know. The first one just did not make me want to play the second one at all. It felt really flat, and it was kind of boring, and the storyline just didn't make any sense. The gameplay was kind of off. They named a lot of the magic really strangely, so it takes a minute to figure out exactly what certain magics do. They tried to incorporate guns into this, but it really, I don't know, the gun part didn't really make a lot of sense either. They're all supposed to carry guns, but then they're using swords instead of guns. You only have one character that actually uses guns, the Rudy character or whatever. You have 3 characters, 2 guys and a woman who's actually a princess. One's actually some kind of weird ass frontier knight or some shit, and the other's an android. Your main character, which doesn't ever talk, is an android. Everybody kind of talks for him, so that's really weird too. But yeah, it was just it was really weird. You had 3 species: humans, this alien species that looks like elves called eels. I don't know, it don't make no sense to me either. And then you had another race called demons, which weren't really demons, they were basically androids. It was just, I don't know, the story made no sense, the gameplay sucked, the whole Western theme made no sense at all. It just, I made it through the game, but my gosh, I was just going, is this game ever going to end, because this is getting really boring. The weapons, they don't give you really any good weapons. You're basically relying on certain abilities each character has. But overall, the gameplay, it just, they were all bad. It was all bad. Everything was bad. I didn't care for it at all. It doesn't even stack up to a lot of other RPGs that I've played. Not even close. So how I made a whole series out of it makes no sense to me. Apparently there's fans of it. And I don't know why, because it was a horrible game. Anyways, I'm now on Final Fantasy 6, or what most people know over here in the United States is Final Fantasy 3. When I get done with it, I'll give you a review on it. So all you movie holics, let's get on to your classic or B-rated movie reviews. The first one I want to talk to you about, I told you in the last video that I watched A Strange New World, which is the third attempt for Gene Roddenberry back in the 70s to get this whole someone being cryogenically frozen and then awoken in, you know, hundreds of years later in the future. So I went ahead and watched Planet Earth, which is the second one. Genesis 2 was the first one, which was a horrible movie. But I hadn't seen Planet Earth yet, so I went ahead and decided to go ahead and watch it and give you a review on it. This was done in 1974. It was basically a TV pilot that never made it off the ground. And it starred John Saxon, Diana Muldaur, which you probably have seen if you've ever seen Star Trek. Especially, she did one episode in the original Star Trek, but she also did played Dr. Pulaski in Star Trek The Next Generation in the second season. She played the Doctor in there. And of course, it also had Ted Cassidy in it. He's the guy in Addams Family. He played, I think it's Lark or something like that was his name. Big, tall dude, really big guy. He's also a really good actor. I've always thought he was a pretty good actor. Anyways, he's in it too. Basically, Planet Earth, and I've seen a couple feminists try to a couple feminist reviews on this movie, and they try to trash it pretty bad because they're talking, because the movie deals with feminism the way it's going now. In fact, it's getting bad. So it tries to go to the extreme on feminism. Basically, again, it's like a nuclear fallout kind of thing, you know. Earth went through a nuclear war or whatever. John Saxon was cryogenically frozen and brought back. They don't show that in this episode. It just, you know, the narration kind of hints at that. A lot of the gadgets on here, they have this weird hypno gun. It's kind of like a ray gun, and a box, a recorder, or whatever he's talking into, in one of the parts of the the show. You can tell it has that Star Trek feel. The suits, the outfits, kind of, they weren't horrible, but they were kind of cheesy looking. But it reminded you a lot of like the Star Trek, the original Star Trek uniforms, sorta. Anyway, John Saxon, you know, he's a guy who's, you know, was in the 20th century. He wakes up in the future. Somehow, all of a sudden, he's leading this team of scientists to find new colonies and other sites to help an organization called the PAX, which is supposed to be like to bring law and order to a chaotic world now. They have this tunnel system underground that goes all over the earth. They use these shuttles in these tunnels to get certain places. They run across a group of what they call the Craigs, and they're basically mutants. And they're still using motor vehicles, basically. One of their head scientists, he gets shot at the beginning by the Craigs, and the team is forced to go find a doctor that doesn't stay at the headquarters. He's elsewhere. There's two of them. One of them, he lives way out there, and like on the other side of the continent or something. It'd take too long to get him. And then they got another guy who's basically kind of went and disappeared, a few years earlier, and they're going to go try finding him because he's closer. The place they end up going to is like not really Amazonian tribe. It's just it literally looks ridiculous. It's just a bunch of several women who are really like modern feminists. They want to be in control, and dominate everyone, especially men. And what they do is they have all these men who are slaves, and they give them this, they force them to eat this weird drug that makes them afraid of everything but them. So it makes men more compliant to their demands. John Saxon and one of his teammates is a woman. She pretends that she's captured John Saxon and goes to the village because they need to talk to them and try to get their help finding this doctor, before their head scientist dies or whatever. Well, when she goes in there, one of the women, Diane Mulder, she basically knocks her down and takes John Saxon as her own property, and then leaves. Later on, the female runs into the female of the team. She runs into another woman of the Amazonian tribe or whatever. They don't look Amazon. They have houses and everything, so that don't fit. Just one of the main feminists or whatever. She runs into her, and she tells her, the men are better when they're not taking the drug. It's making them to where they can't have children. The women, head of the households, they can't have children anymore with their man slaves because the drugs kind of making them stagnant. But she tells her she has to challenge the other woman to get John Saxon back. So that's what she does. She gets John back. So John and his female partner or teammate, the female teammate figures out that the doctor that they're looking for is living under the roof of Diana. So she makes a play to swap the doctor for John, and Diana goes for it. And the doctor's goal is to give the antidote, which he has, to all the men by putting it in their food supply. And then they're going to leave the compound or Diana's house and go back to PAC's headquarters and save the head scientist. Unfortunately, the next morning, the mutants or the Craigs, they capture the doctor and the female teammate, and they come to raid the feminist encampment or village or whatever. Well, to their surprise, all the men are now off the drug, and they attack the mutants and save the feminists, and they kick out the mutants, and they capture some of them. So the feminists learn a valuable lesson that they shouldn't drug the men anymore, and they shouldn't try to dominate and take control and let the men be men, because it works better that way. John and his team decide to head back to PAC's headquarters, and then they save the lead scientist. And that's the end of the movie. The whole moral of the movie basically is that feminism is bad for the most part. But other than that, you know, the movie itself wasn't that bad at all. It was alright for back then, and if you like sci-fi, you should give it a look-see. Check it out. I told you I was going to do some more police story movies, try to get them knocked out of the way, because I've never seen some of them. I did 1 and 2 last time, so this time I did 3 and 4. The third one was actually made in '92, but it wasn't released until '96 over here. Of course, it stars Jackie Chan, and it has Michelle Yeoh in it and Maggie Cheung. Now, Maggie Cheung is the one who plays May, who's his girlfriend in the first 3 police stories. It made $32 million over there in Hong Kong, and over here it made about $16 million. So it didn't do too bad internationally. In this one, basically Jackie Chan goes undercover for, I think it's Shanghai, I'm not sure. But he goes undercover for Shanghai police. The lieutenant, not the captain, but the lieutenant over the particular area is, of course, Michelle Yeoh. And she kind of takes point because she knows what's going on. But she informs Jackie Chan what's going on and how to infiltrate the bad guys. What they do is they set up a deal where he breaks out this guy named Panther, which is one of the head honchos of the mob guy he works for. But they break him out of prison, and then he kind of throws a curve because he wants to see where Jackie's from, his home village and all that. So Michelle Yeoh has to gather up her group and kind of make a family up for Jackie that goes to visit. It's kind of funny. Because he stumbles a little bit here and there, you know. She starts claiming she acts like she's his sister, and she decides to go with them. they get attacked by the local police, and Michelle Yeoh tries to convince them that she's the lieutenant. They don't believe her. Um, they try to make it known that they're undercover. It doesn't work until her captain shows up, and they're all fighting. The gang and the police are fighting. Local police are fighting, and Jackie Chan and Michelle are fighting with them. And she even makes it a point to make it seem like she killed one of them. The captain knows what's going on. He knows they're undercover, so he kind of hauls back the local police and lets the Panther and Jackie Chan and Michelle leave with them. So now Panther kind of trusts them a little bit more, even more so because Michelle supposedly had shot a police officer. They never really saw it, but he's convinced she has to go with him. So they go back. Basically, they go to Hong Kong, I think, is where they were supposed to go. They go to this like I don't know, beach place or whatever, like a beach resort that Big Brother's holed up at, and he introduces them to Big Brother, and Big Brother, he has to test them, and then he's like, okay, you guys are okay, you go with us. They get in this elaborate scene where they got all these there's like 3 or 4 other drug bosses, and then this general that they're selling supplies to, like ammunition and shit. But the general lets them fight out who's going to get the bigger sum of everything. So the mob boss is getting a big old fight. Michelle's given this supposed bulletproof vest by Big Brother, but he pulls off a piece of it and shoots it and shows that it blows up. So she's afraid if she gets shot, she's going to blow up. There's this big fight scene. They're trying to get the vest off. Jackie and her are trying to get the vest off, and at the same time they're shooting bad guys and trying not to let her get shot. It's a crazy scene. But Big Brother in the end, he basically wins and then shoots Michelle to show that there was nothing to worry about. That was only the one piece that had like explosive in it. The rest of the vest was fine. But it's, they're really not happy. Jackie and Michelle are not happy. He's just laughing like it's funny. The general and him come to a truce because they had a big standoff, and they decided to come to a truce and continue doing business with one another. Then it shifts from that to Big Brother's wife is being sentenced and put in prison. They find out that Jackie and Michelle are cops because May shows up and kind of screws everything up. So she gets kidnapped again by the bad guys, and they force Jackie and Michelle to help them break Big Brother's wife out. There's a big fight scene where they stop Panther, capture him, and then they go after Big Brother, and he ends up getting killed. And the wife turns herself in and gives him this bank number where all this money that Big Brother had was stashed away. And that's basically the end of the movie. It's a good action flick. It's Jackie Chan, so I highly recommend it. And we move on to Police Story 4, which was done in '96. Over here, though, it was called First Strike. Just like 3 was called Super Cop over here. Police Story 4 over here was called First Strike. It made quite a bit, a lot better. It did 57 million over in Hong Kong, and only did 15 million over here, but that's not bad for international. It has a guy named Jackson Lau and an actress named Annie Wu in it. that played lead parts in it. They're known over there, not so much over here. In this one, basically, Jackie is brought in by the FBI to help the Russians try to capture supposedly a rogue agent that used to work for the FBI. And well, at first they don't know who he is. It goes off some weird name, and nobody knows who this guy is. They've never seen him. So he does surveillance work. He's trying to do surveillance work. He later finds out that this guy is basically sort of a rogue agent. He's being forced to get these nuclear weapons or parts, nuclear weapon parts, for the Russian mob. They're kind of forcing him into doing it. You know, they plan on killing his family or whatever if he doesn't. They even try to kidnap his sister, but that didn't work. That backfired on him. And at first, everyone thinks that he's undercover, so the family, he meets the family, but they try to get closer to this rogue agent, but they catch on to what's going on, and they try to make him like he murdered their father or whatever, and that's not what happened. The rogue agent, the older brother of the family, he tries to explain to the rest of the family that's not what's going on. He didn't kill him. It was the Russian mob. Jackie Chan, they have this big fight scene with a ladder and everything. You know, it was kind of crazy. But Jackie tries to help this guy and his sister because the Russian mob, which he finds out, the guys he's working for, the Russians, one of the head honchos for the mob is the guy he's working for, the Russian guy he's working for. So he figures that out, and he tells him, "You're on your own. I'm not helping you." And he starts to help the sister and the rogue agent and the family, and eventually all ends well. You know, he gets the Russian mob guy, and it's crazy. They have one scene where these two gigantic dudes are trying to kill Jackie on the rooftops of this building, in his room at first, and then on the rooftop. It's a crazy scene. But then, you know, later on, they send a bunch of Russian guys into this. The sister works for a aquarium place, and she deals with sharks. She's a shark expert. So they go after him in this shark tank. Jackie thinks he falls into the shark tank, but it's actually a seal tank. The seal makes fun of him, you know, for scaring him. But later on, you know, the Russians, they sent a bunch of Russians in after Jackie into the shark tank. And a bunch of them get killed by these sharks. And he's having to fight underwater. He's constantly stealing their breathers so he can breathe. And the sister's in there too, and they eventually get out of there. She had hidden a container that her brother had sent her, the rogue agent had sent her into the shark tank, so that's what they were doing in there. But it's a great scene. But like I said, later on they get the Russian mob guys, and they get captured or whatever, and then Jackie helps the family, and that's basically the end of the movie. It's a really, really good movie. Lots of action. I can see why it did way better than the other police stories. You know, if you like action and you like Jackie Chan, you definitely got to check out Police Story 4: First Strike. Check it out. As before, as I've always said, if you have any suggestions, any kind of movie, B-rated or classic movies, suggestions for me to check out and review, go ahead and leave them in the comment box. I'd really like to hear from you. And all in all, I told you to tell you the truth, and you've just been told.